I'm not sure if your house looks like our house, if your decorations are up, or if it looks like a mix of Mickey Mouse and footballs and toys. Just kind of, the Toys R Us just exploded in our house. But I'm glad you're here, especially on a holiday weekend. But I love this season. I love kind of the season for us starts kind of in October, really, with the fall festival during Thanksgiving. From Halloween to Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then to the New Year, and all the parties and the fall festival and the Thanksgiving dinner and the food drive and all of the things that we do here at church, and then our candlelight Christmas Eve service, and just all of these things that are just real special for us. And as we have a family and with Larson and Weston, just new memories and new things that we're experiencing together just mean a little bit more this holiday season. Even though it's 85 degrees out and it doesn't feel like Christmas, there's something special about this time of year. But one of the things that from the beginning of the holiday season all the way through, one of the things that is, I don't know if you really call it an event or something that really just is fun to do, maybe. And I'm not sure if you have done this before, but it involves grabbing a cup of coffee, finding a bench somewhere, sitting down at a busy place, the mall, town center, and just watching the people. And the time-honored tradition of people watching during the holidays brings out the magic in everybody. It is such a, it is a beautiful time. And you just, this is it. This is all you have to do. You just sit back and enjoy. Yeah, you can understand what's happening with that family, and you understand what's going on with that family, and you see different conversations that pass by you as you're sitting there enjoying the majesty of people watching. And I know some of you don't really do this, but as different conversations come by, it's almost like an invitation that they are giving you, especially if they stop near you, but it's like an invitation for you to join into their life, and for you, for a split moment in history, to intersect your unbelievable opinions and advice into whatever is going on in their life. And you see a couple of adults, and they're having a conversation, and it is clear to everybody on the face of the planet that one person is in the right and one person is in the wrong. And you, in your caring, loving, people-watching heart, you've already developed an argument to defend the person. You've already, in your mind, have told the other person in the wrong, what you would do and where they can go and how they can get there. And it's magical. Or you see some teenagers. And they stop by, and in your wisdom and your experiences that they're about to make a mistake. And if it's a serious mistake, you might actually want to impose an actual word to them, if it's something dangerous. But what advice you would give them. And then lastly, save the best for last of this magical, time-honored tradition of people watching. You're sitting there and you see that child, that child, not the 2-year-old, not the 2-year-old that's crying, but the 8, 9-year-old that is just pitching a fit and just giving his parents, and you think to yourself, actually, I know a lot of you probably don't think this. You think, man, if I just had 1 second with that little person, I'd straighten them out. Or, oh man, if I was their parent, I would do this and I would do that. But I know none of you have those kind of ill feelings toward that child, but and so that is one of the best things that I love about the Christmas season is the time-honored tradition of people watching. If you haven't done it, give it a shot, give it a try. It'll change your season. But we're involved in conversations not only during the holiday season, but we're involved in conversations all throughout the year. And we're involved in conversations here at church. You're involved in conversations at home and at work and in your social circles and in the different areas where you have influence. And we're involved with other people. Because when you have conversations, usually those conversations are conversations that matter to somebody that's involved with those. And so we go through our life and we have conversations with other people, but then there's also times as we go through, especially this holiday season, that we have conversations with ourselves. We have conversations that nobody else knows about. And sometimes your external conversation matches your internal conversations, and you're almost in a perfect line in your relationship with Christ or your relationship with other people. But oftentimes, you find yourself in a disconnect between what is external and what is internal. And you tell everybody that you're okay and things are fine. But on the inside, you're not quite sure you believe that. And so there's a disconnect in the conversations that you're having. And as humans, we tend to want to take these internal conversations, we want to express them to other people at some point in your journey. And what we do with these conversations, we have a couple of options that we have with these internal conversations when there's a disconnect that we have. We can ignore that they're not there. And we can try to ignore that the problem isn't there, that there's no pain, that there's no hurt, that we don't worry about things, or that we aren't as anxious as we think we are. And so we try to pretend that it's not there. And so that's an option. Another option that we have to address the disconnect is to try to cover it up. Try to cover it up with whatever device you want to fill in the blank there. But we try to cover it up to mask the pain and to mask the hurt. All the while, there's still that root problem that hasn't been addressed. And the most difficult, there's other options, but the most difficult option is addressing it head on. And because this is difficult, oftentimes we don't do this one. Some of us have addressed, and I know stories, and I know in my own personal life, in my own personal experience, addressing specific areas of my life and specific conversations that have helped me get beyond. But oftentimes it's too difficult, so we don't even do it. And as followers of Christ, we oftentimes turn to the church. At one point or another, we turn to the church to help us out with this disconnect. Because we reach out as humans to other people and we think that there's going to be a similar feeling. But I know in my past experience and in your past experiences, sometimes when we turn to the church, the conversation turns in a different way because historically, and this is difficult for me because I grew up as a pastor's kid. My dad's been a pastor as long as I've been alive. And now that I'm on staff here at Murray Hill, people view, me as the church. And this is difficult to understand and to admit, but historically, the church as a whole has done a bad job at addressing conversations. I've had love about our community here at Murray Hill is that we encourage and we want you to ask questions. We want this to be the safest place for you to ask questions because we want to journey with you. But oftentimes, because of past experiences, because you've taken that step and reached out to other people, you've been hurt by the church. And so what do we do with this disconnect? How do we take this disconnect in this holiday season and continue a conversation what the church really is. And so Jesus in Matthew, he had a conversation with his disciples. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to Matthew 16. Matthew 16, he is having a conversation with his disciples outside in near the Mount of Haran is the kind of area, kind of north of Nazareth in the part of Israel. But Jesus is having a conversation with his disciples about this topic. When Jesus came to the region, I'm in verse 13. Sorry, page 983 in your pew Bibles, if you're using your pew Bibles. So Matthew 16, verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do you say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist." That's pretty good. Others say Elijah. All right. Others say Jeremiah. Okay. Some of the other prophets. And Jesus, in his Jesus-like way, he always usually starts a conversation with a question. And it was more of a generic, what are people saying about me? What are people saying when they're away from the temple? What are people saying when they're away from the church leaders? What's going on? He wants to gauge the temperature of what people are saying about him. What is my reputation with the people? And then again, in a very Jesus-like way, he takes it from a broad spectrum and he pinpoints it to them individually. But what about you? Who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter, kind of the spokesperson for the group, and I'm sure the other guys didn't know what he was going to say, but Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I will tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." So we see Jesus involved in this conversation with his disciples, wanting to know, who do people say that I am? And more importantly, who do you say that I am? What are people saying about me? And Simon says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus, knowing that nobody from an earthly perspective could have told him that, Jesus said right there, that statement is what I'm going to build my church on and around. That statement is kind of the beginning formation of the church. But the word church there is translated from the Greek, and it means ekklesia. And it means a gathering. And it's interesting, William Tyndale, when he was translating, William Tyndale back in the 1500s has been kind of credited for taking and translating the Greek and the Hebrew Bible into English translation and using the printing press in mass production. And William Tyndale, when he got to this verse, he knew that the word church was not what Jesus meant. And so he used the word gathering or congregation, because in Jesus's true form of the word church, he didn't mean a building. He didn't mean a building that you've had bad experiences in. He didn't mean a building that has shut you out when you've had pain, when you've had questions. He didn't mean a building. He meant, I'm going to build a gathering of people. And there's going to be evil that will try to destroy it. And Jesus in God-made flesh form knew that there's going to be evil in the past. There's going to be evil in the present. We see this today. You can't turn on the news and not see the evil that is happening in our world. But we have promises, just as Jesus promised that there would be a church. It's important for us to remember that Jesus did not predict a place. He predicted a people known as the church. He predicted a gathering. And he knew that there was going to be evil that was going to try to eradicate it off the face of the planet in the past, in the present, and in the future. But he knew that there would always be the church, a gathering of people that believed that Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And so we see that throughout time and throughout history, the church has taken on a different perspective than what you and I know it as. But how do we become the church? How do we be the church to a world, to evil that is out there? In 2016, you're going to hear about a set of habits. You might have already heard about them if you're in some of our small groups, either in a weekend group or in a weekday group. But there's a set of habits that, and they're not new habits. Back at the beginning of the year, I had a couple of mentor sessions with a kind of a group's mentor, and we went through a series of opportunities that I had to grow in my role as a group's leader. And one of these, out of this conversation came these habits. And so as we go through 2016, you're going to hear more about these. You might have already heard it. And so we're going to get a little bit of help up there. And they are the blessed habits. A simple acronym. And as I go through these, you might think, I'm already doing some of these. Yeah, you are. I know a lot of you are already doing these things. But this is kind of a nice little Christmas present for you to take with you. And it's through an acronym. So B, bless 2 people a week. Bless 2 people a week. One, and I don't know what that looks like for you. I don't know. I know what that looks like for me in my area of influence, but you have a different set of people that you interact with when you leave here than what I do. And so bless 2 people. Be intentional about blessing 2 people, one inside the church and one outside the church. To be intentional about being the church. L, learn from Jesus. Learn from Jesus. Study the way that Jesus encountered people that hated him, people that wanted to kill him. Learn from Jesus and how he interacted with people that wouldn't darken the doors of a building. Learn from Jesus. Get in the scripture. Learn how he interacted. E, eat with 2 people each week. Now, I'll give you a little caveat. I know it's a little bit expensive to eat, and I'm not saying go out to eat. I'm just saying that as human beings, we have to eat to live. And so as you are eating, eat with other people, one inside the community of faith and one outside the community of faith. Because as these habits have been a part of my conversation this past year in 2015, a lot of the conversations that I have had have revolved around food or around coffee. So if you can't have a meal, grab a cup of coffee, grab something, but be intentional about interacting with people, one inside the community of faith and one outside. So eat with 2 people. S, the first S. The first S is spirit-led life. Spirit-led life. What we say around here is living from quiet. Have your quiet time. Spend those few moments in the day before the day begins with God in prayer time. From what I've experienced, it's better to spend the time before than at the end asking for forgiveness for all the things that I've said and done and screwed up with in the day. So but it sets your spirit right for the future and for the future part of the day that you don't know where God is going and how you can be involved with his work and how you can be the church. And the last S is sent to serve. Sent to serve, because we are given specific instructions as followers of Christ, and it's for us to live out this life and to share the love of Christ that we've experienced. So we are sent to serve. We do this as a community of faith. But this is an intentional way for you to take a group of habits and apply them into your own internal conversation in being the church. And you might be here and you might just say, you know what, Doug, why can't I just live my life? And I'm going to go to work. I'm going to raise my family. I'm going to interact with the people that I want to interact with. And you interact with the people that you want to interact with. And you do your thing, and I'm going to do my thing. And we're just going to go our separate ways, and we're going to live happy, merry lives. You can do that, absolutely, 100%. There's nothing stopping you. But as a follower of Christ, we're held to a different standard. And we're held to a different level of interaction with other people. Because I know in my story and I know in your story that there are going to be times when we can want to do our own thing, but life is going to happen and stuff is going to get tough. And you are going to need other people. And so we can't just go and do our own thing because we're held to a different standard. Have you ever walked around this building? Have you ever just taken a tour of the building and seen? We have a ton of rooms and we have a ton of doors. I don't know if you have been to all the different parts, but we have a lot of rooms. And it's interesting because a lot of the rooms that we have locks on them. And we have locks on them for security purposes, for different gatherings, because we don't want, for our children, we want our children to be safe. We want things that are in our office and important documents to be safe. And so we have specific locks on doors. But then we have locks on other doors that are kind of interesting, I'll just say. Because when you go up and you go up to a door and you look through a window, because we also have doors that have windows that have locks. We have a lot of doors, we have a lot of windows. And you look in and you might see some kids or you might see a group that's having a good time, and they're laughing and they're enjoying conversations and they are enjoying themselves and they are engaged in just a good time. And you reach down to open the door and it's locked. And you're left on the outside. But you want to be on the inside. You want to be on the inside. And so you don't have the right set of keys. And I'll give you probably one guess on whose keys these are. But you go to reach the door and it's locked. But if you have the keys, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. And it might take you a little bit of time. It might take you a long time to find the right key based on this key ring if you have these. Because all of these keys look the same. They all say Schleg. They're all cut pretty much the same. But they all have different doors that they unlock. They all have different ways, and so you have to find the right key. Is that the right key to get into the door where they're having fun, where they're enjoying life and communicating and having conversations of hope and love? I don't know. But I know one thing, when you have keys, you cannot be locked out. When you have keys, you have the ability to walk in and engage in that conversation. And as followers of Christ, we're held to a different standard because we have keys. In verse 19, Jesus says something very profound. In 19, he says, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And Jesus finishes the conversation, and he tells them right now, don't tell anybody that I'm the Messiah. And I'm not exactly sure. I've studied it, and I don't exactly know what the second part of verse 19 means. Whatever will be bound on earth will be bound in heaven. What will be loosed on earth will be loosed in heaven. But I know that the first part of the verse, Jesus gives us the keys to the kingdom. And when we have the keys, we have the ability to allow other people to join us, because when the door is locked and we have the keys, we have the ability to open those doors. And it's what we will do with those keys to the kingdom in 2016 that will redefine what it means to be the church. What it will do to redefine how people view you. What do people say about the church? What do people say about you and about me? Because when they see the church and when they view the church in different areas of their life, and when they see you go through a difficult time, and when they see me go through a difficult time, they are going to watch you like a hawk because you're a follower of Christ. And we might be the only version of the church that they see. And so as we go through 2016, I want you to take these habits and engage in conversations, because whether they come to a church building or not, when you gather with other people, you are the church. Jesus did not predict a place, he predicted a people, and the safest place on the planet to discuss any topic. And if you don't hear anything else I say, when I say any, I mean any topic should be amongst the ecclesia, in the gathering of people known as the church. So we have the keys. We have a set of habits to involve into, to begin to pray about, to engage in conversations that matter. Because what matters to you matters to God. And it should matter to other people as the church. So we have the keys. What are we going to do about it? Let's pray.